sharks, the most dangerous and feared predators in the ocean. But even the great white pales in comparison to the biggest shark that ever lived. Megalodon. Literally translated, it means big tooth. A prehistoric shark with 3-meter jaws lined with deadly rows of serrated teeth. Megalodon used these jaws to inflict massive damage on even the biggest whales in the ocean. Its teeth were huge.
6 to maybe 7 inches long, wickedly serrated on either side like steak knives and shaped like a big, broad triangle.
I know what I saw. One of the most common phrases used by witnesses around the world in regards to creatures thought only to be extinct or of lore. Megalodon, the 2-million-year-old legacy of the deep ocean, is still speculated to be a living being of our vastly undiscovered oceans. What more enthralling thought that a beast of monolithic proportions may still thrill the human experience. Let's look at facts and realities of life on this planet from past to present. Would Megalodon be the ferocious killing demon of the sea, or rather a solitude creature that moves in a tranquil world where respect of space is given by all other creatures that swim in the vast blue? There is overwhelming evidence that proves such a being held its dominance here. But why extinct? Science has no definitive answer. And foremost, there is no proof that it does not exist. Keep in mind, in a world of struggle to survive, Megalodon too were born as a small animal, and fought for decades to reach sizes of 50 feet in length. Until that size was achieved, Megalodon was vulnerable to the jaws of other predators. This would change the developmental evolution of the shark to be more elusive until its size could contend with the uncivilized waters in which it domains. Let's be honest, wouldn't it be thrilling to believe that such a titan still exists?
The idea of a creature larger than a gorilla with an odor like a skunk might seem far-fetched.
From the beginning of his time on Earth, man has always been fascinated by monsters, real or imagined.
The outside world is very judgmental about these things, with many people not believing in them whatsoever.
Cloaked in secrecy, they show up without warning, state their business, then vanish as quickly as they appear.
They only land in isolated places. They have taken people, I believe. They do have technology.
But the idea is if enough people focus on something, like thousands and thousands of people focus their mind on something and the image, in a very strange way, they can kind of create a real-world version of the fictional entity.
Fact, fantasy, and history have come together to tease the imagination.
That the truth will out, and that no one lie can live forever.
Welcome to SuperNormal. And welcome to SuperNormal. I'm Sean the Fork Chop Forker, joined tonight by the entire broadcast team of SuperNormal, SuperNRML here on Spreaker. Folks, you can listen to us just about every week as a new podcast drops, and you can hear us on just about every platform. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, like and subscribe us. You name it, we're on it. Spotify, we're getting out there. And, of course, it wouldn't be a show without our co-hosts, and I'm going to bring Vance Nesbitt on here to give you a little stimulating greeting. Vance, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well there, maestro of the supernormal, and it is Shark Week. So there are two camps of people for Shark Week. There are those that are like, Shark Week. But then there's others that are like, shut up, it's Shark Week. So for all those people that say, shut up, it's Shark Week, this will be a pretty epic episode.
Well, we should punch him in the head.
Well, that's an idea. I'm looking at two guys behind the glass over here that are doing their best Hannibal Lecter impersonation. Maybe you want to introduce them.
Well, I've got one sitting off to the right to me. That was a freaking sentence. I have one sitting off to the right of me.
And I'm the dyslexic one.
There he is, everybody. The voice from the past, the famous James Baker. James, say hi to everybody and welcome yourself back to the show.
Hey, girl, hi.
Welcome back. It's been a long time since we've had you on the program.
Yeah, I've been busy.
Anyhow, with two other co-hosts joining us as well, we have a new voice to the broadcasting realm, at least the paranormal radio. My good friend, I've known him for over 20 years, Mr. Travis Quarter. Travis, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, doing pretty well. Hope you're doing well as well.
Well, I'm as well can be, my friend, and welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Thanks. Happy to be here. I've been interested in weird and supernormal type stuff my whole life, so why not start talking about it?
Absolutely, and we're glad to have you. And, of course, another blast from the past. You remember him as one of the primates on the Nocturnal Journal, my good friend, Maz Adams. Maz, thanks for joining us.
You got it, man. It puts the lotion on the skin or else it gets the hose again.
And we know all about hoses here on SuperNRML. Maz, tell the folks what they can expect from you.
All right. Well, I mean, it's really good to be back, honestly, along with my former co-host from the Nocturnal Journal here, the mother forker himself, Sean. I want to thank you, first off, for having me here. I'm really itching and chomping at the bit to do this, and I look forward to working with you other fine gents, and we're going to have a lot of fun ahead. I'm ready to do this.
Absolutely. And we got to solve for the itch. It's an ointment on aisle 3. But, guys, as we move past here, we do have a great subject tonight. An interesting subject to study, Carcharocles Megalodon. And, of course, one thing that drives me nuts is that this damn fish's taxonomy has changed now like 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. It's mind-blowing, Vance, and maybe you can shed some light on that. But it's the Meg. Let's grab some scuba gear and dive on in there, my friend.
Let's. And you brought up a good point. It has changed. And if you're changing it that many times, taxonomy of it, if you're changing it that many times, then there's still a lot of unanswered questions. But the name of the show is The Reality of Megalodon. And what is the possibility that a megalodon may still exist in the deep blue? So I did some research, and I know you gentlemen have done some research too, but I always try to take it off from a different angle and came up with some questions. And the first and foremost is that I've been privy to some of the documentaries that say Megalodon is definitely extinct. But then as you're watching it, there is no definitive answer as to why it went extinct. There is no solid evidence that this creature went extinct. So my point is, when all these fascinating fossilized megalodon teeth have been recovered and dated back to 2.6 million years ago, it's fascinating. That's definite proof that this creature that could grow to full length of 50 feet, maybe a little bit more than 50 feet in length, that's a bus swimming around under the water. That's a mega monster. But all these fossilized teeth have been uncovered primarily in land sources from tectonic shifts. So there's a plethora of megalodon teeth in the Baja Desert in Southern California and in Mexico. And there's a lot to find in Florida along the shorelines, but you have to dig for them. So my whole point is, if we are finding evidence of megalodon teeth on land sources, to prove and date that this creature exists, if you look at your hand now, average size for a full-length Megalodon for its largest tooth would fit between the tip of your finger and the palm of your hand, and that's a pretty sizable tooth. And it weighs anywhere between a pound and a pound and a half. Now, with small shark teeth, when they lose their teeth, they can get caught in a shallows tide and wash up on shore. A megalodon, or a large shark, its teeth, if it happens to fall out in an attack or predatory event, whether it be a whale or a seal, and it loses a tooth, which is very frequent with a shark. That is part of their process, and the shark itself is a very simple organism. It's a very simple organism. It's aquadynamically designed, and it has teeth. There is no more evolutionary need for an animal like that. It's perfectly designed, which is why they have not evolved over millions of years. They've remained pretty much the same looking creature because it's a perfect design. So if a shark of this size were to lose its tooth at that weight, it's not going to wash up on shore. 2.6 million years from now, if there is a continual tectonic plate shift, 2.6 million years from now, if humans are still here, they're going to be unearthing large shark teeth, because these will fall to the bottom of the ocean, and I don't know of any oceanographer that has gone to that depths in research for looking for megalodon teeth. Now, I had posted a video to you guys. I don't know if you've all seen it, but I did share it with you, Sean, and I believe it was off the coast of northeast of the United States. It was in the Atlantic coast, but it was a boat, and they were videotaping this 30-foot shark that was right at the surface at the boat, and one of the people that were on the boat was just, beside himself at the size of this thing.
Absolutely. It was large. It was very large.
Oh, it was huge. It was massive. Now, keep in mind, too, that not all megalodons reached 50 feet in length. When you tell somebody megalodon, they picture this mammoth shark. But they were born like any other animal. They were small, and they had to fight in order to grow to those lengths, whether they had to isolate themselves or and keep away from other predatory jaws that would have consumed them. So it may have isolated itself. Now, in oceanic research, there is a good philosophy as to why creatures of the deep get so large. And it's because of lack of food source. And when you have a lack of food source, your body is becoming larger so that it can maintain more energy while scavenging for food. And that's a very possible reality that maybe not Megalodon itself as the species prehistoric known, but it's very possible that a shark, it might even be of the great white genome, that may exceed 30 to 40 feet in length. That's not unacceptable. But with the tooth recovery of fossilized teeth, the average size of Megalodon was only 30 feet. That's average size. Now that's like taking, a fossilized NBA team and an alien civilization looks to go, well, humans must be 6.5 to 7 feet tall. No, that was the maximum length. But the average size of Megalodon was right in the 30 to 35 foot length. So there is a good possibility that a shark, whether it is of the genome of great white or Megalodon, is definitely, in my opinion, still a possibility.
Maz, what did you have to add there?
No, I just think, obviously my background, where I came from, talking about a lot was Bigfoot, and there's always a discussion of versus this, did they exist? And the big argument is finding bodies. And what I find funny about, or at least interesting about the Megalodon is, yes, we knew that they did exist, but what we know of them is so limited because what are sharks primarily made of? They're
cartilage.
Made of, exactly, and that's not going to last underwater. So we're already kind of pigeonholed into finding out all that we can about them, but that's pretty much what I wanted to get at.
Yeah, the teeth is all we
I just
have
find it
left.
interesting.
Absolutely. Travis, what'd you have for us?
Yeah, it is interesting. I wanted to look at the fact that if you look at IFLscience.com has an article up which makes a really good point that does speak to the possibility of Megalodon still existing, and that it says on the site the megamouth shark, for instance, was just discovered in 1976. So there are so many large types of sharks that we have no idea about, and just because you don't find it yet doesn't mean it's not out there. The ocean is huge.
Yeah, I mean, 95% of the ocean still unexplored. So Vance made a comment about oceanographers finding teeth. They can't even map the ocean floor successfully yet. We've had more people go to the moon and have mapped more of the moon than they have the ocean's bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Baker, what do you want to say?
True.
Well, we were talking about the size, and honestly, the size has to deal with the area it is in. Like if you have a goldfish and you put it in a small bowl, it's a small goldfish. But if you put it in a pond, it gets the size of carp. You know, if it's got a small roaming area, because especially as time went on and the ice age hit and different things where it, there was blocked off to certain areas, they would have gotten smaller. And we'd have trouble sometimes identifying the difference between a megalodon and maybe another shark that was as large because they started to reduce. The other thing is that sharks in general will shed teeth, so you don't know at what point you got a tooth from a specific one. It could be when it was younger, a few years younger, and then a tooth that's maybe like 3 miles away could still be its tooth, but might be 5 years later.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
What I found interesting, Vance, as you know, they did find teeth in 1873, the HMS Challenger. And when they did a dating of it, it wasn't carbon dating. I think it was manganese dating. And it dated back 11,000 to 24,000 years. And of course, there's a lot of scientists who are saying, well, that's not right. But there were teeth discovered potentially as late as 1873. That's a lot different than 2.6 million years ago.
Right. No, agreed. And that's why I say there is a very good possibility that whether it is the genome of whatever eventually comes out of this, maybe 10, 15 years from now, when they decide what classification they want to put the Megalodon in. And when I say they, I'm speaking of oceanographers and biologists. Between that entire science, once they definitively decide finally how to categorize this fish, there is still that possibility that there are other fish, sharks primarily, that are probably pretty close and equal in size to them. So, Matt, what do you have to add to that?
No, I was just going to ask in regards to whether they're extinct or not. If we are to believe that they are extinct, or at least in large part extinct, I just wanted to get your fine gentlemen's opinions on what it was that made them that way.
Now, that's an interesting question because I was reading an article. Actually, no, I think I watched I want to say it was the television program that was on this past Sunday on Shark Week, Expedition Megalodon. And they had, and I wrote his name down here so I wouldn't forget it, Asnocker or something. I couldn't remember it. I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes. But he said, though they thought Megalodon went extinct 2 million years ago, he thinks it was actually earlier than that, 3 million years ago. But what they drew comparisons to is that in 2.6 million to 3 million years ago, or before that, in that time frame originally, that 2.6 million years, they relate that to an ice age or another cataclysmic event, right? But it's important to realize that 3.5 million years ago, he feels it was the natural progression of it being eliminated by smaller shark species and smaller predators. That it wasn't the ice age or something that took it out. It was smaller, more streamlined natural predators.
And I would have to back that up, too. You look at a mako shark, which, again, may be in the same genome as Megalodon, but it was smaller, much faster, much more agile, and may have been able to consume or be the dominant predator in the area just because it could outmaneuver a Megalodon and only left Megalodon to take whales.
All right. On to the point that you were making, Forker, and well, actually, that all of you were making in terms of why they became extinct. And this is linked to the smaller food source. There's an article on Live Science by senior writer Mindy Weisberger, where she states that that the Megalodon mega shark had a rather high body temperature, and because of that, they would need a faster metabolism, so they would have to eat even quicker than other sharks. So that speaks more to them possibly going extinct when you said they did. And another thing with that is that I also read that some people believe that there was an overlap as the Megalodon went extinct, if it went extinct, when the great white shark began to evolve right around that time.
And that's a very interesting point that she makes. However, in my opinion, it kind of negates the entire word of evolutionary.
Right, yeah.
And it's true, because species evolve to their environment and they don't go extinct. Now, extinctions that we see it is one of two things. It's either caused by a cataclysmic event or by natural selection. Well, if you're talking a shark of that size, it may have changed its environment, in order to cope with the situations in which it was faced with regarding a food source.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maz, go ahead.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Travis was saying, in some of my research, I found that some believe that the Meg was partially warm-blooded. And if we're going to believe that it is possible that it overlapped with the great white, obviously the great white would be the main competitor there, and it's the only other shark that's really known to be partially warm-blooded, as in it can get to colder temperatures. So they would have been in the same area, and it would have been outclassed there, and it had to eat, I read, 2,500 pounds of food a day, which is about 7 pounds more than I do, and so that's a lot to keep up with.
Mm-hmm. And it is. That's true. Another point that I wanted to bring up, too, is if we look at this from a scientific point of view, and keep in mind that there's a lot of military on the water. You have submarines, you have aircraft carriers, you have frigates, you have everything with sonar and radar. And they come across a blip on the radar that might be a megalodon. It's not going to say it's a megalodon. It'll probably just get passed off as a whale. And keep in mind, too, the largest toothed mammal on this planet is the sperm whale, and it has been known to dive 2 miles down in order to eat squid. That's its primary diet. And you go 2 miles down, that's insane to think about a creature that is able to do that. So if you're picking anything up on a radar blip, you may just have passed it off as, well, it's a whale, when it could have been a large shark. And clearly, like I said, with that video that I had passed on to you, Sean, I just sit there with my mouth open when I saw that thing. And it seemed not aggressive, but it turned towards the boat in a way that I got the feeling of, leave me alone. I need my space. It didn't seem aggressive. It's just turned towards the boat, and you need to get out of my space. And maybe that's what Megalodon did. It needed its space. It's clearly speculation and conjecture on my behalf, but I like to think, just for my thrill and the human experience, that this creature still exists. And if it's not Megalodon, it might be an offshoot of that, and it'll be another classification, and it could be in the same genome as great white. But I like to think that there's still a giant mammoth creature out there with teeth and nothing like the movie The Meg, which was awful.
Well, now that you brought it up, Maz, go ahead. Give us some thoughts.
It was a lot of fun. It was a weird offshoot of The Office with Rainn Wilson. No, I follow movies and stuff like that, so I remember when it was first announced that they were going to be doing it, and Eli Roth was going to be directing it, and it sounded really promising, and it just kind of took a turn. But I personally enjoyed it. I just wish they went a little harder with it. It is what it is. It was like a sci-fi movie with a budget, basically, But Jason Statham was I think the first mistake. God bless him.
No, I hear you on that. I find it rather amusing, and it even took place in the very first shark movie, which would be Jaws, and it is a classic. And it terrified me when I saw it in the theaters for the first time when it first was released. It was terrifying. But as it become older, you look back on it, I'm like, at what point does a shark have the ability to reason and conjure up revenge? Animals don't do that. Okay, they don't go out of their way to try to take something out. What's with this revenge thing? I don't get it. That's not how animals react. They'll either leave or they'll just kill you. But they're not going to come after you out of spite and revenge. But that's Hollywood.
Only X's, right?
Yeah, well, this is true. And again, everything can only be speculated because all you really do ever have to work with any shark living or extinct, whatever the case may be, is its tooth. It's the only part that will survive. There's no bone structure. Cartilage breaks down, and there are predators that consume on it, large and small, along with the flesh. That's all that's left is the tooth. So in order to go back and then try to create something around a tooth, it's a tall task. It's a very tall task. But there are people talented enough and scientifically minded enough to be able to do it. But again, what did it actually? It might have been purple for all we know. We don't know the color of these things. Did it have feathers? No, probably not, because it was an aqua creature. But we don't know. Did it have scales? We don't know. There's a lot of definitive, things within that chances are it didn't, but we really don't know. Species that has any sizable mass to it, and not just body mass, but let's say the tooth, is not going to wash up to shore. You will find small shark teeth that only weigh half a gram that do get caught in the current and get washed to shore, just like seashells do. Seashells are kind of cup-shaped, so it's a little bit more able to pick up that flow of tide to push it towards shore. And that's probably why you see so many seashells. Shark's teeth, yeah, you'll find smaller ones. You may find one the size of a dime along the shorelines. When I walked, the beaches of Florida, I was absolutely mesmerized at how many shark teeth and dolphin teeth were on the shore. I filled up a sandwich bag filled with shark's teeth. It was incredible, but they were all relatively small. A megalodon tooth? No, that thing's going to sink to the bottom. It doesn't matter what that tide is. That thing's going to sink to the bottom, and we are not digging the bottom of our oceans looking for shark teeth. We're looking in our oceans to make discovery of waterscapes and creatures that live there. But the whole thing is, the evidence is down there. We just haven't dug it up enough to be able to, let alone having the tools to reach to those depths. We have them, but they're very minimal. There's only a very small handful of tools that can go to those depths and dig around. And you're talking 0.1% of our oceans that have been discovered that way. We don't know, and we're constantly discovering new creatures every day, just like it was brought up earlier. What is it, the mammoth shark that was discovered in the 70s? That's not long ago. That's a fraction of a blink of an eye in the span of time that we just discovered this fish. It's possible.
Let me see here.
They're always finding weird stuff in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All you can eat, also.
Good.
Now extinct.
But let me ask one quick question while he's looking at. You dig up a giant water spider. Who was the first person that said, that looks kind of tasty, I want to eat it? Oh, no. That thing's terrifying looking. The first thing I'm thinking of is run, not eat it. Exactly. Yeah, who thought of that? I mean, I'll just pick blueberries and live on that. That's a little safer.
No, sea cucumber, on the other hand. All you ladies out there, no.
All right. Yep, I do have an update here. Looks like the megamouth shark was first discovered in 1976 by a U.S. Navy research vessel operating around Oahu, Hawaii. when the shark became tangled in some cables. That's according to AustralianGeographic.com.
But rather interesting.
So yeah, Japanese, yes.
Rather interesting. It was caught in cables. Otherwise,
Yes.
it would probably still be an elusive creature. Just because there was something man-made that it got hung up in, it could very well be, as of today, if that didn't happen, it may still be an elusive creature. Who knows? I don't know how many times they're seen or spotted. I'm unaware of that, but I don't want to speak out of turn either.
Oh, I just say with a name like Big Mouth Shark, you'd think it would have been found a long time ago. It's not like Ninja Shark, you know? No, I was just going to say it's almost like a comparison between, people are afraid to fly, but they're not afraid to drive. Some of these other smaller sharks, like a tiger shark, that can get you in shallow water, you don't really hear about as much because they're more common, unfortunately. But the big ones are the ones that grab the headlines and the attention.
Right. No, very true. No, the most aggressive of the sharks happens to be bull shark, which can be both saltwater and freshwater. It can transfer up, Mississippi River, and there has been bull shark spotted in the Mississippi, moving pretty far north, but they're very aggressive, along with the tiger shark, like you just mentioned, Maz, and the mako. Makos they're terrifying me. They absolutely terrify me just because they are so aggressive. They want to eat, and they don't care. They want to eat. And they've got a mouthful of teeth that you don't want to contend with either. I think sometimes smaller teeth that are sharp are a little scarier than a big tooth that's sharp. I don't know.
I don't think they would be as feared, at least the great white specifically, I don't think would. Yeah, for instance, the one that comes to mind for me, and I haven't seen that many sharks, what would be the hammerhead kind of freaks me out in terms of what looks weird and freakish. Yeah, the great white specifically, no, I think that was strongly linked to Jaws. Like, you'd have a fear, but it wouldn't be nearly as mainstream as that movie made it.
Right. But if Peter Benchley didn't write about it, somebody else would have. I mean, they're looking at this thing going, okay, it's a big shark. Like, we got to write a book about it, and it continues on till today. I mean, look, we're making a movie about the Meg. Okay. The bigger, I guess, the scarier. That's true. But sometimes it's the little things that are scarier than the big things.
Chucky.
I was going to say that, I swear.
Below the knee is terrifying.
All right, quickly name the most dangerous animal to the human species.
Humans.
No.
Bacteria?
Mosquitoes.
Oh, mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes are the deadliest things to the human existence. And look at how small they are. So sometimes it's the tiny things that are a little more deadly and scarier than the big.
Amen. I think with the shark, the thing is the reason that I think it does pull a nerve on people, and then you add that movie because, like you said, basically, like, there's people that have a shark watch on their phone that says, hey, there was an attack here, here, and here, but not all of them are attacks.
Yeah.
Some of them are just, a shark was really close to my leg, or I was diving near their food source and it rubbed against me to kind of tell me to go find somewhere else to dive. That's not really an attack. I think an attack is more like when you lose a major organ or a body part, like the surfer woman. But the great white and most of the larger sharks are not going to come in close enough to kill a human because it's a lot of work, and it's also, we've instilled fear in most animals on the planet. Where there's population, we have a better chance of hurting them, so they kind of stay away compared to, going to areas where there might be seals and whatever. They can just do it, without any competition.
Yeah. I think we need monsters in our mythos and in our day-to-day lives. We need something to keep the adrenaline going, to keep us thinking, what if? I think Megalodon satisfies that for under the water and the aquatic fears, kind of like Bigfoot or large bears for the woods.
Nessie.
They keep us entertained. They keep us thinking. And there's just, in most instances, a glimmer of hope of a reality for these things. So in a pop cultural sense, they're very relevant to kind of keep us potentially in check, but to also kind of inspire us to keep looking. Again, 95% of the ocean's bottom hasn't been explored yet. What the hell are we doing? No,
very true. Very true. And, sometimes get a little irritated, going back to Baker's point there. I get a little irritated sometimes when there's a news coverage about a shark attack. Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, okay, first off, you're in its backyard. Don't blame the shark. Okay, you're in its backyard. I understand people love their water sports. I understand that, but that's a risk that you're willing to take if you're going to do it. So don't bastardize the shark. You're in its backyard. You're in its home. So, just my point.
No, that's a good point to make.
And the worst part about that is there's one shark attack, and then how many sharks pay for that? I mean, a perfect example is Steve Irwin. Don't get me wrong, but he got killed by a stingray. How many stingrays died afterwards because people thought they were avenging Steve Irwin, which was the opposite of what he believed. It was a random accident.
Well, I think that's one of the purposes of this show is to tell people, listen, sharks are very important to the ecosystem. We need them to keep balance in the oceans. Going out and killing them just isn't cool. You don't go out and kill a shark because you want a nice fin or a good set of jaws to put on the wall over the mantle. That these are a living creature that deserve respect, that are just trying to survive, and they're very important to keep the balance of the oceans together. And we got to stop, just killing ecosystems and just killing things because sometimes we literally have nothing better to do, or we can't stop focusing on the economic drive, demand for certain items that these things produce. For the sharks, it's the fins or the teeth and the cartilage. It's just, we have to think about the bigger picture here, not to get off on an ultra, conservational message there, but it just had to be said. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, no. To that point, question that occurred to me: how do you all think you would handle an expedition safely, searching for evidence of something like the Megalodon without interfering with its potential habitat?
I would be with Maz on the beach drinking beer with little glasses, watching you guys do that, and that would be my contribution.
It's a good question, Travis.
I would be there with you too, Baker. Believe me, even if I was in a submersible, I don't even want to see something like that under the water, let alone... No, I'll sit on the shore. You can tell me all about it when you come back, but to actually see something under the water, that's the scariest thing to me, and I think that's probably what makes the mythos so successful, like these shark movies that Hollywood produces, is that it can come, it can see you, it can come out of pure darkness and water, and next thing you know, it's in your face, and you don't even know it was there. And it's a terrifying aspect to see something that's in its own room and just happens to pop out, and it's right there. And that's one terrifying thing to me. I'm sorry, but as a kid, I'd go swimming in the pool, and I was constantly freaking out that there's a shark in the pool. I know that's ridiculous, and somebody posted a meme about that and put a shark in a pool. And that's the worst childhood fear. I used to think, especially after seeing Jaws, and then my father decided after he took us to go see Jaws in the movie theater, he thought it'd be great to go to the seafood restaurant afterwards, where they got all these giant fish on the wall. I was terrified. And mind you, I'm a kid, but I was terrified. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I've had enough of sharks. Please, I just don't want to be here for this. Thanks, Dad.
I think we definitely live in an us or a we-centric society where we only really think about ourselves to a certain extent. And I mean, the ocean is the ultimate unknown. People, we fear the unknown. And even, it's funny you brought up the pool, because I was actually going to bring that up. Even in an environment where we know that nothing like that is going to happen. Like the other day, even I was doing dishes in the sink, and I looked at the sink when it was full of water, and I kind of had that moment like you would have as a kid, where you'd think, like, what if, Mm-hmm. But I think the interesting thing about this subject, and we haven't all discussed, what lays ahead, but I'm sure, we're going to touch on a lot of things that we're going to talk about. Are they real? And this topic has the distinction of us talking about, is it still around? Mm-hmm. And if it is, and we keep going down this path of fear, it may be a moot point.
Now, talking about the relevance, like you just said, of it still being, is it still here? Is there not the, keep railing back to the title of the episode, the reality of Meg? Is it real? There are sightings still of very large sharks, and then we could talk about here like the famously large shark submarine.
Mm-hmm.
What did they call it? Was it the Black Demon off the coast of Mexico? They did the episode of Monster Quest on that.
Yeah, I love Monster Quest.
There are sightings, but guys, are these sightings inflated based upon initial shock and reaction to a very large fish? Are they just reported by stupid people who don't know how to judge distance and size? Are they hoaxes, or is there something to that? What do you think?
Well, now that you've brought this up, and I haven't researched it, so maybe a few gentlemen know a little bit more, but wasn't it a couple of years back, there was a tagged great white shark, and it went down at a high rate of speed, and they lost the signal of the thing, as if it was consumed by something bigger than great white. And that was the consensus that the biologists and oceanographers came up with, is that this thing was predatized upon by something much bigger than a great white, because the way that it descended under the water was at a higher rate of speed in which it would normally travel, and it went to depths that great whites don't go to. What came up and got that thing?
I want to say that I just read an article or saw a video where they explained that as perhaps the tag fell off the shark, or the shark was attacked and it was consumed by either another shark or a whale, and that explained the quickness of the depth change.
Which is very possible, and I'm looking for the truth. So, yeah, that's very possible.
And now that we know that orcas have no problem taking out great whites, that makes that a little bit more plausible.
No, this is true. And like I said, the sperm whale is the largest mammal on this planet that's a carnivore. And it doesn't care. It'll go to extreme depths, and it's a meat eater.
It's built for it.
And I don't know that orcas really mess with the sperm whale a whole lot, but unless they're really hungry.
And then we can't rule out that there's a large predator beneath the oceans. And we really have to take that into consideration. So we ask ourselves the question, and I think this might be the last question of the night, unless you guys have some other things you want to talk about on this. Is there a reality to Meg? Guys, is it fact or is it fiction?
I guess I'll start it off if you gentlemen don't mind.
No, go.
I think it's kind of, we're all on edge because we didn't discuss this before, so this is the moment of truth here. But as somebody who has, collects casts of supposed Bigfoot footprints and stuff like that, it might be funny, but I think it's gone. I might be the only one in here, but I'm gonna say that it's no longer there.
Well, kudos to you. I happen to think that there's a good possibility that it may not be specifically the same composition of whatever Megalodon was. It may not be the same composition, but I do believe that there is sharks that are pretty close, if not exceeding 30 feet in length, which again, I said, is the average length of what was discovered as far as Megalodon. It may have been a very small percentage that reached the 50-foot length, but on average, I definitely believe there's 30 to 35-foot predatory sharks out there. Absolutely.
All right, I'll go next. All right, so I am well aware of everything the fact that we haven't found a ton of stuff that's in the ocean. Based on what we have found and based on what some of the fossils indicate in terms of how long ago many scientists and biologists believe that the Megalodon existed, I'm going to say, if forced to choose, which we are, and that's cool, I'm going to say extinct. I think it did have its time, and I think I don't think it's around anymore. I think we'd have a little more to go on, but I could be wrong, just an opinion.
Baker?
I think it did exist. There's no question on that. But the thing is has it evolved, like lesser evolved, or gone with other sharks to create different sharks? I think that happened. But I don't think any creature that lived millions of years ago has gone untouched. I think at some point, like I said, is if it has, if it started to get a smaller area where it could eat and a smaller area it could swim, then they got to be smaller sharks, and they got to be smaller sharks. And as they got smaller sharks, they probably mated with other sharks of its kind. I don't know the whole if sharks can, if a hammerhead can make it on with a great white, if there's a little Barry White in the background, who knows, But the fact is that, like, you don't know what it's crossbred with or whatever. So the Megalodon purely, unless it's, and I know we make fun of the movie The Meg, but unless it's in an area where the cataclysm didn't bother it and there's a bunch of other creatures that are just as big, I don't think it exists the way it did, if it does exist. So existence, yes, but probably like the same size as a great white or something like that.
So I am in agreement with you all. I don't think that it exists anymore, and I'm kind of amazed that we all feel that way.
Me too. Even the ones who are saying it are still in a way saying that it doesn't exist, because everything else evolves too.
Absolutely,
but it's still not the same. Yeah,
I think we have seen it even through the. When we look back at some of the families of these sharks have been in, like, and I just named them Carcharodon, Carcharocles, Otutus, they were all had other sharks in that, family line. They either went extinct or they just, became something different. I think what people see these days, if they are a big shark, it's a very large, older great white. And we've seen that with deep blue. They estimate her to be a relatively senior shark. And she's 20 feet or more. I think maybe 22 feet is what she clocks in at. And, I mean, that's a massive shark. And they still exist. And what we're seeing, if these sharks are being observed, it's nothing more than a large great white. We have fossilized teeth. That's good enough for me. Megalodon was real. Now it's nothing more than a good old-fashioned fish story. And until someone brings us a body, just like the Bigfoot, it's a great story, but it ain't much more than that.
Yeah, but you don't know if it killed the boy unless you get to cut it open.
Oh, God. I'm not going to watch you stand
Sushi,
here
anybody?
cut that thing open and watch that Kittner boy spill out all over the dock.
He still got slapped in the face.
He did.
Poor man.
Poor Chief. Well, guys, why don't we tell folks where they can find us? Of course, we're all socially active, and you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/the SuperNormalCast, because Facebook won't let us use SuperNRML, which you can find us at on Twitter. You could also find us on Instagram, SuperNormalCast. And, guys, why don't you tell them where they can find you individually if you so like?
All right. You can find me at facebook.com, presumably /Travis Quarter. I don't post too much, but I did recently post a theater review of something CTL did. So I'll be sharing a lot more of the Supernormal stuff moving forward, though. This has been a blast.
All right. You guys can find me on Facebook. You just go into the little bar, type in Maz Adams. That's my personal page. Or you can look on Facebook under the Art of Maz Adams. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Maz Adams Art. Obviously, I appreciate everybody who supports the show and who supports my art. And this was a blast, guys.
They can find me right here in the studio, so feel free and come on over. We'll have a beer, a cup of coffee, glass of wine, whatever you choose. But if you can't make it here, you can always find me on Facebook, Vance A. Nesbitt. And that's always reach out to me on Messenger. You can ask any question regarding the SuperNRML or anything regarding the Stranger Than Fiction news.
You can find me all over social media at Sean Forker. I am my name. Go to our website, supernrml.com, to find out more about our great hosts. Guys, this has been a wonderful show. I'm so glad you joined me.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
This was a blast. Glad to be back.
And folks, remember, if you feel something strange, don't be alarmed. It's just super normal.